This is the Competitive Edge and Virtual Assistants. Welcome to the Competitive Edge. My name is Scott Britton, and I'm here to help you answer a question that we all have. How can I get an edge in my business and life? Each week, we're going to uncover how some of the most successful and inspiring entrepreneurs, entertainers, and thought leaders get an edge so you too can reach your full potential. Do you want more unique ideas and tactics like the ones we're about to share in this episode? Then you're going to want to do two things. The first is to subscribe to the Competitive Edge on iTunes so that you don't miss out on new ideas from future conversations. After this, you're going to want to go check out my main site, lifelonglearner.com. When you enter in your email address to join the Lifelong Learner community, you'll get access to my most advanced strategies to stack the deck in your favor. Again, that's life-longlearner.com. It is a big day, Competitive Edge listeners. Why, you ask? Because today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, virtual assistants. I started working with virtual assistants 2 years ago, and it's changed my life. I get more done and get to do more of what I enjoy, and honestly, who doesn't want that? Today's guest is Maren Donovan, CEO of one of my favorite companies, Zurschule. Zurschule is where I got my first dedicated VA, and since then, I haven't looked back in my desire to grow and continuing to use virtual assistants. In this episode, you'll learn how to think about outsourcing and the first steps you'll want to take once you've identified something you want to outsource. We'll dive into a bunch of other best practices, as well as talk about how Maren went from having an idea to actually getting Zurschule off the ground. If you stick around for the Mindshare segment at the end, I'm going to share my personal outsourcing system, which is pretty unique and has helped me get more done and just be happier because instead of trying to get everything done, I just get to focus on what I enjoy. Let's dive in and hear from Maren Donovan. Maren, what is up? How you doing?
Very well. How are you?
You know, I'm doing fantastic. It's pretty hard to have a bad day here in San Diego, so I can't complain. But we're not here to talk about San Diego weather. I want to talk about outsourcing and your amazing company, Zurschule, today. Tell me, Maren, how long have you been using virtual assistants?
I've been using virtual assistants myself since I was in college. I started a few different online businesses in college, and I would use virtual assistants to help optimize my site, to help track what was working and what wasn't, things like that.
That's great. So you've been doing this for a long while, and one of the things I want people to just get out of this interview is just how it's really changed your life and why this is not a maybe someday thing. Why actually stop doing the tasks that you shouldn't be doing and getting an assistant to do it is just so high leverage. So when did you really realize that this was just a game changer for your life and business?
I realized it pretty early on. I mean, I always thought at first I was lazy, but in reality, I just really like delegating things I'm not good at. So from a very early point, I just was fascinated by the ability to give people sets of tasks or even a project and then know that they would work on that while I could work on something else. So it was a game changer from day one.
And when you started off, did you feel comfortable doing it or was it a little scary?
I mean, I think it's always difficult in the beginning to really trust that things will be done. But I think that really has to do more with the human ego than anything else. I think that we're always under the false impression that we're the only ones that can do things. But to be perfectly honest, most people are, most people are good at a small subset of things, and then anywhere from okay to incompetent at the rest. So the biggest part is figuring out what you aren't good at and starting to slowly delegate that. And then as you get more and more comfortable, you can delegate up to your competency level, up to the things that you're absolutely stellar at. Like my co-founder is a designer, and the things he should delegate would be design work. Now, he could delegate everything else up into his core competency, what he does really, really well. So he can delegate his schedule. He can delegate his bookkeeping for taxes. He could even delegate things like researching high-end stock photography for a design of some sort. So he could have an assistant who goes through the photo websites like Getty Images and finds 50 pictures of women working on a computer. And then Eric could look at that computer and figure out of those 50, which are the two he's going to use. So it saves him hours and hours of going through stock images, and he can focus on his core competency, which is putting together that image with the design he built to make like a website really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you break that down, that like in reality, there might be this one particular task that seems like we're the only person to do it. But when we chunk out that task and all the things required to go from particular idea maybe to or desire to finish created task or product, like there's actually steps that somebody else can do so that you can focus on the most high leverage thing or the thing that only you can do or the thing that you enjoy the most, however you'd like to use an assistant.
Exactly.
So this is awesome. And I think, one of the things I just want to highlight, because my goal for people listening, I have two assistants and I absolutely love them. They help me so much. And I just want people to really take action. So I think if we can just kind of codify like at a high level, what an assistant allows you to do is A, do more of what you are very, very good at, and B, do more of what you love and ultimately save more time or get more done in the process. And I think that's amazing. What other things do you think when people start to use virtual assistants and get comfortable, what other skills can they expect to develop?
I think that as you start to get better at delegating to a virtual assistant, you learn to get better at delegating in general.
Absolutely.
You can do everything from delegating within your team. So obviously, usually most people that are entrepreneurs will eventually work with more than just themselves and their virtual assistant. So when you get better at delegating in one part, you usually get better in delegating in other parts of your life. I have extreme examples. I'm kind of obsessed with delegation on a lot of levels in that both in my personal and professional life. If I don't have to do something and if don't really enjoy it or if I'm not particularly good at it, I'll delegate it. And that would be everything from getting my hair blown out once a week to getting food delivered. I use things like eBay Now and Amazon Fresh a lot, runner services. I try not to do things that, unless I'm getting pleasure from them, if they're personal stuff, I'll try not to do stuff that is a time sink that I don't particularly enjoy, whether it's cleaning the house or driving myself around. I'll use UberX or something like that because I'm not a huge fan of sitting in traffic and driving. I'd rather be able to do something else, look out the window, listen to a podcast, work on my computer.
Is there a particular mindset that you take that allows you to understand when you should be delegating something?
Well, the triggers should be when you're like, if I do X, then I'm not going to be able to do Y, or I really don't like doing X, or I'm not particularly good at X. I don't really know how to get started. There's a lot of things that you can, delegation also forces you to define the scope of a project or a task. And that's another great aspect of delegation. So if I'm going to have my assistant help me when I'm traveling, I can't just be like, hey, I want to go to LA. I will need to be like, I'm going to go to LA on these dates. I need to be at this, and this meeting. So I'll need a rental car. I'll need to stay in a hotel. And I will need to make sure that, something else. And then me and her can work on, okay, the specifics. What type of hotel? Where are the meetings at? How are we going to scope out my time so we make sure that I'm being as efficient as possible? And when you start delegating more, it forces you to look at your life through that lens. So you make sure things just start to become more and more efficient.
Yeah, it's so true. When I first got started with it, I call it like building like the virtual assistant or even delegation muscle, where when I first got started, I was just like, maybe I should outsource this. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should have some help with this. And then just like over time, it just became like almost ingrained in me where it was like, okay, I don't enjoy this. Somebody else could do this. I am only worth like the tasks that I do in terms of like how I use my time. Should I do this or shouldn't I do this? And it took a little bit of time, but like once you get ramped up, it really just changes the way that you perceive, all the things that you decide to spend your time and energy on.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
So let's say somebody finds a particular task and maybe they just start working with a VA for the first time. Like, you know what? I shouldn't be doing this. How do you typically recommend people get started with outsourcing that particular thing?
Like I said, the best thing is to figure out what you want the end result to be. So let's say you figure out that one of the least effective things for you is scheduling. So what you would say is you'd work with your assistant. You'd be like, all right, I want to take meetings on these specific days. I want to take meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday and Friday are going to be my creative times. They're going to be my time to think, to be creative, to do things, to work for long hours on projects without interruption. I normally like to take meetings on the phone, and if I'm in person, then I need to have a 20-minute buffer to get there and park or to take the subway or something like that. That kind of first sets the parameters, and then from there, you and your assistant can start getting more efficient about how exactly you want to go about it. Like, I like to take phone calls at certain times of the day, and if I have to do a meeting, then we'll do that in the mornings on my way into the office or something like that. So really what it comes down to is figuring out what you want out of your life, really on a high level, and how you want to structure things. And then from there, you can work back and become more and more specific about what you delegate and what you just can work together on.
It's almost like creating the container to really like just direct somebody or even to direct your own actions to be most efficient.
Exactly.
Do you do anything else when outsourcing, like a particular task? Like, do you set like a time limit? Do you set like a due date? Do you take video screencasts? Like, what are different ways that you can make this as like easy as possible when working with somebody else, especially in the beginning?
What I would say is the number one thing is to do it the first time yourself, because then you'll know exactly what you're asking for. So do it yourself, figure out what you want it to be done, and if it's a specific way, how you want it to be done. Write that out, do a screencast, draw a picture on a whiteboard if necessary, and from there, you'll be able to say, here's the template, so to speak, and then from going forward, your assistant can take it from there.
That's great. And I think one thing for people to realize is like when making this type of template, it is malleable. You can totally improve or change the process and iterate on it as once you've done it. So that initial creating a process or creating a standard operating procedure doesn't have to be perfect. It's just really kind of just like training wheels to get you going until you really create
Exactly.
something perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the business of Zurschule. Maybe for people that aren't familiar, you can just give a quick few sentences on exactly what Zurschule does.
What Zurschule does is our goal is to help assist our clients to help them lead their best lives, both at home and in the office. And the way we do that right now is we connect you with a dedicated virtual assistant, and that person is there to kind of be like the life project manager. They'll do everything from keeping your calendar straight, making sure you make it your appointments, they'll do your travel, they'll help you with projects, they'll do research, they'll do online purchasing for you, things like that.
What are some of the things that people typically aren't outsourcing that they probably should be with a Zurschule assistant?
Some of the things that people can outsource, it's always funny how much you can outsource. A big thing that I notice that people don't outsource is travel. People often think that they need to do it themselves. But the thing is, once they do it once they understand what they want and communicate that to another person can replicate that pretty easily. And travel is usually a very time-intensive thing, looking up flights, changing flights, looking at hotels, mapping routes. I have my assistant help me plan all of my we have offices in several different cities. So I'll travel from city to city, meet with different people in the team, and work with them. And I'll help her find a co-working space, or find a meeting room, or whatever we need, and arrange all that stuff. Send calendar invites to everyone, make sure everybody is on the same page. And so I'm freed up to think more high level.
That's great. And how did Zurschule come about? How did you go from idea to really implementing and ultimately building this company?
I mean, it really came out of my own use case. I was using virtual assistants a lot as I tested out 2 different businesses online while I was living in Reno, Nevada, was where I was in school. And from there, I would blog about the different businesses. And at the end of the day, people were always the most interested about what I was doing with my assistants, how I was hiring them, training them, what I was delegating. And I was also the most fascinated by it. Delegation, automation, I like to consider it like leverage point. It's, you only have so much time in the day. You have 24 hours, and a bunch of that is dedicated to sleeping and eating. So if you only do stuff for yourself, then you will only ever have the potential to be that effective. Say it's 14 hours or 10 hours or whatever. But if you leverage other things, whether it's automation, so maybe it's the online tool, or whether it's using people in your company, it could be a laundry service. There's a lot of different ways that you can leverage your time, and virtual kind of is like a growth throughout an experimentation on that.
So you have this notion in your head that, you know what, I shouldn't be the only person who has access to this, and it certainly shouldn't be as challenging as it is. What did you do next?
I put a advertisement on my own blog, and I said, hey, if you'd like to purchase for $100 a virtual assistant package, which was literally me and my own virtual assistant, matching them with someone that we found on Freelance or Craigslist, and we would hire them, we would vet them, and then we would give them to the other person to work on an instant contract basis. I just wanted to test the market, and as people started to sign up, I started to realize it was more of an actual business than I thought. So eventually we decided I decided to productize it, to own the relationship with the workers myself through the company that became Zurschule, and then to sell buckets of hours versus doing one-off kind of matching.
Got it. And what would you look for? Because I know a lot of people out there, they might want to experiment with services like Odesk or Elance. What did you look for in these people? I know you guys have very rigorous hiring and only accept a very small amount of people. What types of stuff do you look for in somebody who can really do a great job?
I mean, what I always say is part of our process is we hire for traits and train for skills. You really want to figure out, depending on what you're looking for in a worker, what the personality traits would be, just the traits of the person are that will be really good at that role. A person that will be really good as an engineer is a different type of person that will be really good as a personal shopper or as a barista. But figuring that stuff out, and from there, it's building a basic rubric around it.
Got it. And so you guys would use various, after identifying the traits, you guys would basically test or look for those with the different people that you were talking to?
Absolutely.
What's an example trait of people that made great virtual assistants?
For great virtual assistants, a big one is being a people person, enjoying working with people, being a people problem solver. So somebody that you say, everybody has that friend that when you're like, oh, you like express that you have a problem, it's like, I'll help you fix that. That's the kind of person that also makes a really good assistant. Somebody who kind of was like, you know what, everybody kind of figure it out on their own. Those are more solitary people. They do great in other roles, but when it comes to working with multiple people at once, they're not going to thrive. So that would be one trait.
Amazing. And take me through a little bit in terms of the growth of the company. So, okay, you're seeing demand for this. You're maybe ramping up a couple of assistants. How have you guys grown it?
A lot that we do is in word of mouth. We've grown completely through word of mouth up until this point. And the way that we really focus is providing exceptional service, and then our clients sell it for us. So that's a similar way that other companies in the beginning started off. Amazon, Zappos, really doing one thing and doing it well, and then knowing that when you do that, your clients will become salesmen for you versus having to do something like take out paid advertisements, stuff like that.
Because it's so interesting to me, versus like software where you create a product once and you can sell it as many times as you can sell it. You guys are literally selling a highly variable good in a person and their ability to help other people. What have been some of the challenges in this process?
I mean, the biggest challenge is just what you said. It's dealing with people on every angle. So you can be managing a bunch of different people, and there's personality conflicts. There's all sorts of things that come up.
So are there maybe some things that people who are managing a distributed workforce can learn from your experiences? So maybe some things that you guys have done to kind of mitigate the challenges with just juggling so many people?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the just basic human nature. Communication is key. Being able to understand their multiple personality types and working types. That's how we try to address things from the beginning. Is just being transparent. We try to be very transparent with our clients about our business model. It's collaborative consumption. Your assistant will work with multiple people, so there are things that allows us to be much cheaper than having your own dedicated assistant or your own assistant in house. But it also means that your virtual assistant will have multiple people they're managing, will need to be really good at prioritization and can't always, be there instantaneously for you. So just being honest, being upfront, and trying to be open about those restrictions and then work around them is what we found the most helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I really love that. And managing expectations, no matter what element of business we're talking about, is so critical. What is the vision for the company? I mean, I love what you guys are doing, and I'm just curious about what the next phase of Zurschule is.
I mean, we're really trying to grow and continue to make an impact. We don't have any plans on stopping. We think that this is the kind of service that can, be vital to small business owners everywhere. There's almost 30 million small businesses in the U.S. This year alone, and hundreds of thousands are created each month. We think that in and of itself is a great place for virtual assistants to thrive, and for people, small business owners, entrepreneurs, to gather a ton of value, because often it's just you and one other person, or just sometimes you alone. So having a right-hand person, having that virtual assistant to help you wear all those hats is a huge benefit. And then at the same time, when it comes to households, there's a lot of households that have two working parents or one working parent, and it's incredibly busy for them. So being able to plug a virtual assistant in and then help you manage that, your life and your work balance, it's just, to us, it's kind of a problem that we could tackle for the next 50 years and still have tons to do. So we're really excited about continuing to grow.
Yeah. Do you think that there's potential for specialization in the future?
Absolutely. We're planning on launching something called Zurschule Experts in 2015, which will be along those lines.
Amazing. What's a preview of a specific vertical which expertise will be offered?
Bookkeeping or accounting would be one vertical that we're looking into.
Well, you might be just getting another. I might be getting another Zurschule assistant, because that is the stuff that I absolutely cannot stand.
Exactly. We noticed that. We've got a lot of requests, and it's also a great way for us to allow our assistants to level up, because they can. A lot of them have expertise. A lot of them have master's degrees in certain things. So allowing them to, outside of just being a Zurschule assistant, allowing them to be a Zurschule expert and sell their time and expertise for a higher dollar value, and also making it incredibly affordable and beneficial for our clients is something huge, and it's something that we're starting to put in the works right now.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think there's just so much friction into like finding people that are very good at the one thing that I suck at and not having to ramp them up. And it sounds like that's exactly the types of things you guys will be helping people with.
Yeah, exactly. That is what we would be doing. I mean, that's the goal. We want to be a one-stop shop for this stuff.
So I'll just kind of finish up with just, this one question because you seem like you're a very productive, efficient person. Is there any kind of like one last tip on being productive that you could give people who are interested in, I guess, being a more efficient, prolific business person?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I have found personally over the last few years as I've delved into this is setting aside time to not be reactive and to be proactive, especially setting aside a few hours in the morning to just focus on the big picture. Think about what you want in the next 6 months, year, 5 years for your business, and the same works in your personal life. And then going about it in a more specific way versus a reactive way. Because most people tend to just react to what comes at them in the world instead of being proactive, being specific, and kind of coming from a place of presence and being like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to try it. And of course, you'll change your roadmap 1,000 times between now and hitting your goal. But just taking time to be still and to think and to give yourself just a pen and paper and sketch ideas out versus being on email all day versus being very reactive in meetings, constantly engaging. I think that's the biggest breakthrough I've had in the last 5 years, and something I would encourage everyone to do.
It's amazing. Do you have a particular like schedule interval at which you do this?
Yeah. Yep. I try to take the first 2 hours of the day and block them off and just do creative writing and work on whatever the biggest problem is that I'm facing either personally or most times with the business. And then by about, 10 a.m., I can pop in, I can check emails. But I also don't keep my inbox open all the time. I check my emails in relatively specific chunks of time. And I'll give myself a half an hour, and I'll crush through half an hour worth of inbox, and then I'll get off, and I'll do something else. I think that just allowing your inbox or reactivity like that to take over is an absolute productivity stat.
Could not agree more. Maren, if people want to learn more about Zurschule and all the amazing services that you provide, what's the best place to go?
Best place is to go to the website, Zurschule.com, and you can always email me directly at Maren, which is just Maren at Zurschule, and I can answer any questions or direct you to the right person.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Before we finish up with today's Mindshare, I just want to say thanks for listening to another episode of The Competitive Edge. If you enjoyed the ideas in this episode and want access to future conversations, the best thing you can do is subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes. If you haven't done that already, right now is the best time to take care of that and get on board. And while you're there, if you feel like this show has made a positive impact on your day, it'd be great if you could leave us an iTunes review so that more people can find the show. Now, I know we covered a lot in this episode, and there might be a few key ideas or tools that you want to remember. So we went ahead and compiled all of the notes and links mentioned from this conversation for you on lifelonglearner.com. That's life-longlearner.com. Alrighty, let's go ahead and dive into today's Mindshare. Alrighty, Competitive Edge listeners, great ideas and thoughts from Maren, the CEO of Zurschule, and I just highly recommend that company. If you don't know how to spell it, it's Zirtual, and all of this information, including notes on the show about, as well as a link to Zurschule, can be found on lifelonglearner.com if you click the podcast tab. But today I thought I would be cool to kind of share my evolution of working with virtual assistants in my current system. So I started out with a company called Fancy Hands that allows you to basically have, when I was using it, was like 15 to 20 minute tasks and basically have somebody else outsource them. So like research, calling places, making appointments, scheduling, I would use Fancy Hands for that. But the challenge is that I really wanted somebody to get to start to know my preferences so that it would make the process more efficient and I wouldn't have to so diligently outline exactly what to do over and over again, especially for recurring tasks. So after getting my feet wet with Fancy Hands, I went and started to use Zurschule. And I have this amazing assistant, Josiah, that I still work with. And basically, the value here is that I have a 10-hour block with Zurschule every month. And the value is that you get somebody who really understands how you work, what you like, and can do things at a faster rate without as much supervision because they understand your preferences over time. So I work with Josiah there. And actually, this is just a quick idea for anybody. I actually usually don't end up paying for it because I have the top ranked SEO'd posts for Zurschule review with a coupon code. So I have all these referrals that come in organically, and it's pretty cool. So that's just an idea for people that have these type of referral services. Just write a blog post and get it well SEO'd, and then you end up not having to pay for that service. Pretty cool. So like Uber would be an example if you had an Uber coupon and just invited people to that. Anyways, Josiah was awesome, but the challenge is that the scope of tasks that you ultimately can have outsourced within Zurschule is finite in that it's hard to get people to, can't really within their guidelines do things like SEO or edit video or audio or write for you or just different things that I wanted to accomplish. So I went outside of Zurschule and got another virtual assistant who is really my colleague, Lazar. And Lazar is the man. And basically, Lazar works with me 40 to 50 hours a week. He's based in Belgium. 40 to 50 hours a month. He's based in Belgium and helps me from all kinds of stuff to random one-off tasks, to customer service, to actually writing up the show notes and creating the blog post for each one of these episodes. Just all kinds of different things that you can imagine. And he's a huge help. And how I found Lazar is my virtual architect, Amber Lee. So you can imagine that, let's say you have a couple assistants. There's oftentimes where you want to just find like highly specialized, affordable labor on sites like Elance and Odesk. But the challenge is finding these people is there's a ton of friction for finding good people, vetting them, knowing that they're going to do a good job. And that ends up preventing us from actually using and taking advantage of these services. So what I've done is I work with Amber Lee, and you can find her at amberleemiller.com to basically outsource the process of having to find these people. Every time I need a specialist, whether that's audio editing, creating images, design work, working with specific tools like Optimize Press, I tell Amber Lee, she goes out, she finds somebody very high quality for me to work with. I pay Amber Lee for her time finding that person and then immediately start working directly with that contractor. And this is just a really efficient system because it gets me just outsourcing literally everything with high quality people instead of having to spend my time finding these people and subsequently deciding not to do it because of the friction of finding these people. So it's kind of this unique system where I have someone who's very much involved in my business in Lazar. I have Josiah, who helps me with a lot of different random tasks and is also a huge help to my business, but can only perform tasks within a scope of Zurchule's guidelines. And then I have Amber Lee, who I basically can find somebody with across a wide spectrum of different specialties and really just experts. So at any moment, I have access to somebody who can be doing something at a much more cost-effective thing than myself when I just look at my hourly rate. So this is kind of my system. And, the thing that really motivates me is that somebody once said this and it really just stuck with me. And that's you're worth what you spend your time on. So when I do things that I know I can find somebody to outsource and do this work for, $5 an hour, $10 an hour, $20 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever it is, I'm operating much below my bandwidth because I could be doing something for my hourly rate, which is much, much higher than that. So, that for me just motivates me to constantly be outsourcing. It's a really good framework and hopefully a kick in the butt to get started with this stuff because it really can change the game and just, not only get you more time back and become more efficient, but just spend more time doing things that you were meant to do and that you enjoy. Anyways, I've went on my spiel. I'm going to gracefully step off the soapbox and just say thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.